Chapter 10. A Parliament of Wolves. A black boat is drawn up on a grey shore. The folk of Gwynedd, grim-faced, stand silent on the shoreline as a bier is carried to the side of the boat and laid across the thwarts. On it lies a man, pale, grey-haired, clad in a russet-dyed tunic trimmed with gold. A thick fur cloak wraps his shoulders, and there is a heavy gold pin at the shoulder. Rings are on his fingers, and a fine sword is belted at his waist. At the stern sit 2 oarsmen. In the prow are 2 cloaked figures, Blaise, chief Druid to the Pendragon, and Lady Vivienne of the Veiled Isle. As the boat is pushed off the stones into the rising water, they draw up their hoods and become part of the silhouette, dark cutouts against a mist-pale sky. And the boat fades from shore and drifts away towards the Isle of the Dead. So passes Uther, king of Gwynedd, and Pendragon of the Britons, to lie under grass on the isle alongside his brother Ambrosius and his forefathers. The long hall, it's busy, bustling. You push in past a group wearing the boar symbol of the Mannonia and get several unfriendly glares for your trouble. It takes you a moment to work out where the others are. It's difficult to see over the crowd. Eventually, you spot them amongst the throng in the far corner. "It's all they're talking about," says Kai to you, handing you a cup. "What about Bedwyre's hand? Does that make him unfit? Will he be the king? Will you be king, Arthur? Should you be king?" It will take days of wrangling. Blaise has to gather opinions from many voices, and must ask the advice of the old ones, says Emrys. "I think many of Uther's followers would prefer you to Bedwyre now, if I read the mood alright, but there are still plenty of folk who don't trust you. It would be a struggle." "What about Lady Vivienne?" asks Gawain, sounding troubled. "She'll know the law of things." "She'll not be long," says Morgan. "There are preparations to be made. The dead must be honored." "She's here. I saw her outside," says Kai, "dealing with some priestesses thing for the funeral, I suppose. I don't know what you folk could do for the death of kings." "Drink, mostly," mutters Gawain gloomily. He sighs. "Listen, Ar, if they acclaim you king, then—" "Wait." Emrys holds up a hand. He's become more assertive since the Isle. "Arthur, what is it that you want? For you need to know, before Blaise or Vivienne force you to something. Do you want to be king of Gwynedd?" "I don't. Not enough folk would follow me. It would break Gwynedd too badly, and we need to be strong now. Or, someone needs to take it for Gwynedd to be strong. Bedwyre is maimed. It can't be him. I have no other choice. Or damn right I want it." We are less and less of a diplomat, what the hell? I want to, but you know. Damn right I want it. Kai slaps you on the back. That's more like it. Look at it this way. Bedwyre's been a pain in your arse since we got here, and at the very least you'll be able to shut him the hell up. Oh my god, it's so cruel. Emrys studies you and nods. "Perhaps you're more like your father than I'd thought." You notice serving men clearing a space by the fire, setting out a seat. The hall is filled with dignitaries, kings and the emissaries of kings. Even those Uther argued with constantly have sent messengers from Lothian to Demonia. None seems quite clear who they should give their condolences to after Uther's death, so they settle on exchanging words with Blaise. The room buzzes with one question: what now? Damn, that made me more of a warrior. Oh, not a bad choice. You watch as Bedwyr is helped through the crowd to the seat. The stump of his arm is bound up and his face is grey, but he's lost the sickly yellow of the last few days. I think you could be king, and a good one, perhaps a better one than you think, says Morgan quietly. I think it's yours for the taking if you want it, and I think Gwynedd would be the stronger for it. You've done damned well as a war leader. They'd follow you, I have no doubt at all, says Gawain. I'd follow you. Don't forget how many allies you've brought to Gwynedd, says Emrys. That matters. People will remember it. Kai shrugs. You know me, brother. I'll stick with you, whatever you say. Oh, psst. Here's Vivian. The crowd parts before the Lady of Innis Mon as she walks slowly to the head of the hall, where Uther's throne sits. The hall is silent, all eyes on her. Uther is dead, she says at last. He died at the hand of a Saxon sorcerer, here in the hall of Dinas Emrys, in the heart of what's left of our country. The King of Gwynedd, the Pendragon, the High King. She looks around the room, to the invited guests. Aaron of Dyfed, you knew him well. Do you have aught to say of Uther? King Aaron rises from his seat. You haven't seen him since the Circle of Stones, since he refused to give his oaths to you. Uther was a man, he says quietly. I called him prideful and arrogant when last I spoke, and I stand by that. Yet he was also a brave man, a strong one, who'd take his burdens squarely on his shoulders. I wished him no ill. King Cadell? Cadell of Povy stands. God will judge Uther, he says. For my part, I will miss his laughter and his boasting. I promised my men to Uther's cause, and I repeat the promise. They will fight for Gwynedd and undo this insult. Powys stands with you. King Lot, says Vivian. Lot remains seated, cup in hand. Uther was a friend, he says, gesturing expansively. And he was a fool, stubborn, thick-headed, and unable to give up power. I told him this, to his face. We have had no true Pendragon, not since Ambrosius, but I liked Uther. Though, I'd very much like to know what Gwynedd will do now. Vivian turns to you. Arthur, you were his war leader. What have you to say of Uther? Uther was a great king. He cared deeply for his people and did all he could to keep them in safety and to hold off the invaders. Or, Uther was a weak man. He placed his own status and his pride above the safety of his kingdom. His stubbornness has put us in a perilous situation. Or, Uther, for all his faults and flaws, was a brave man and wanted the best for his people. But he always lived in his brother's Ambrosius' shadow. He was always jealous of the love that people gave to Ambrosius, and that tainted his choices. I have no idea what to say. I am halfway tempted to go with this one, and halfway with this one. I don't want to say that. Let's go with the last choice. Well said. Aaron regards you thoughtfully. Other speeches follow. Simple messages of friendship, acknowledgements of debt, or simply the bearing of witness. In the middle of all this, Morgan takes her arm. Come outside, it won't be for long. She leads you out of the back of the hall into the cold of day. When you've reached one of the new storage huts, thrown up since Cynric's raid, she lets go of your arm and paces. You clear her throat. What is it? She doesn't look at you. There's something I've been meaning to tell you. I have to leave. What do you mean? My mother's tolerated me being here in Uther's court for long enough. Now he's dead. Well, I have studies to return to, decisions to make. I have to go back to the Isle, and I don't know when I'll be back. It'll be a while. A long while. There's the child to think of. Please don't go. I love you. I understand. You should go. It won't be forever. Please don't go. I know, Cariad, I'm the same, but I can't stay. It's not just because my mother tells me to go. There are things I must do if I'm to become a priestess, and I need to. Everything's falling apart. I can't just watch. I'm doing this for her, she sighs. And then there's the babe, and I've left it too late. There's barely time to say anything. I love you, my Arthur. I'd hoped to stay here with you until our child was born, but I can't do that. And as to whether I can come back for any length of time beyond, I truly don't know. So here's a thing I need to ask. Is it your will, once the child comes, that it lives here, or lives on the isle with me? On the isle, they will be safe and brought up honoring the old faith. With you, the future is less certain. Gwynedd being what it is now. I know it is a difficult thing. I know how much you suffered because of your mother's absence, and how your father turned against you. I know how much you suffered because people saw you as the result of your father's infidelity. But you and I can never wed, Arthur, and never be together for long. So let us think what is best. The child should stay with me, or the child would be safer on the isle. Or it seems to me that it would be best for the child to know both its parents, and to learn from both. So perhaps it would be best to spend half a year on the isle and half with me. I think this is the best choice. Morgan raises an eyebrow. It will be difficult, I think, and perhaps hold risks. But fair enough. We will do what we can to manage that. Once the child is beyond nursing age, we will find a safe means for him to travel between us, she grimaces. It sounds so final, doesn't it? You never know. Perhaps we'll clear the Saxons from the shore. It's to be hoped, but right now it feels like we're a guttering candle, and the dark is closing in. We should get back. You make your way back to the hall, and the repairing of a broken kingdom. The festivities for Uther's wake continue late into the night. It's not until early next morning, when you're abruptly shaken awake by Gawain, that you realize something is wrong. Kai, he says, voice grim, did you see him at all yesterday after you spoke for Uther? You massage frowning temples. No, you'd assumed he was with a girl somewhere. What's happened? A herder found this. He holds up a scabbarded blade. Kai's. Outside by the stockade. He probably dropped it when he was drunk. There's blood on the hilt, Arthur. No one's seen him. You struggle from bed and start searching Dina Samris. Gawain's right. No one's seen your foster brother since yesterday. The last, it seems, is King Aaron's cupbearer. I did see him well after midnight, said the boy, by the stables. He was talking to some men, maybe half a dozen. They were looking at the ponies. He was drinking. He asked me to fetch more ale, but when I went back, there was no one. These men, would you recognize them? Aye, maybe, says the boy. They had a badge on their gear, a pig, I think it was. A golden boar? demands Gawain. The boy swallows and nods quickly. It could be. Dumnonia, says Gawain with certainty. King Geraint's man. He's no friend to Gwynedd or to Uther. Didn't even trouble to come himself to the wake, just send his men. But why would he take Kai? He spends a moment in thought and then looks up at you. It's not been many hours, and they'll be crossing land they don't know. And Kai's terrible horsemen. It's days to Dumnonia. We can catch them, Arthur, if we leave now. We should gather a force. Teats of the mother, Arthur, are you listening? We can't waste time. And this whole fort has a hangover. Morgan's gone. Who knows where Emrys is? I'm going, right now, and so are you, even if I need to nail you to a saddle. Come on. Well, I'm glad that guy is on my side. Though I actually have an idea why Dumnonia would steal Kai. Kai is my half-brother, and I'm to be crowned the king of Gwynedd. If Dumnonia is not a friend of ours, what better they have than to steal and hold my brother as a hostage? 2 days later, exhausted as the stumble-footed ponies beneath you, you ride into a patrol of men from a court of King Germain of Dumnonia. Whatever half-hearted plans you've been making fall by the wayside swiftly. They outnumber you considerably. They are courteous, but insist that you be taken before their king to declare your purpose in this land. Geraint... Now I give him myself! Geraint's fortress is like Dinasemre's, save that his hall is a great round low-roofed hut, like to those of the Waka in the north, but much bigger. You find the king at supper with his guest, Kai. "Ah, Kai, my brother," says Kai, with a mix of relief and trepidation on his face. "Ah, Kai, my brother," says Kai. "I'm glad you found me." Ah, Kai... Gawain stares at him if he's gone mad. "Oh, so this is Kai up Ector," says Geraint, rising to greet you. He's a young man, flaxen-haired and pale, and his hand, when he grasps yours, is limp and cold. "I've heard much of you from my lord Arthur. Please sit and eat, and all can be explained." "But he's not," begins Gawain, confused. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, King Geraint. I'm Arthur ap Uther. It seems you wanted to speak to me. May I ask why? Perhaps we can come to some agreement." "You have been misled, King Geraint. I am Arthur ap Uther, and you kidnapped my brother. Would you care to explain? Draw my sword." I thread on Gawain's foot. "No, Gawain, I'm definitely hungry. I'll gladly break bread with Arthur and King Geraint. I trust Gawain, but I trust Kai more." I have no idea what this did. It increased my cunning, I think. Geraint calls for more food and drinks. "So, brother Kai," says Kai to you. Okay, now it makes sense. "So, brother Kai," says Kai as you sit down. "Good King Geraint here was telling me his proposal. He wishes to make a bargain. The Saxons have asked for my head on a platter, and the king wonders if we can make a better offer." "An offer of what?" You said to meal with a will. Your stomach is rumbling after the journey, and the meat and wine is good. "Yes, so they stole him, that's what I thought." "My kingdom lies exposed to the Saxons," says Geraint, toying with his cup. "I have two choices: fortify my lands, arm men, and fight, or strike a deal with the Saxons and grant them safe passage. And, under Uther's rule, it seems to me that the alliance of the Briton tribes is now dissolved. If those bonds were strong, then perhaps, but they are not." "Then what is it you want?" "Oh, golden men," says Kai expansively, waving his goblet. "What does every kingdom want? Is he drunk?" "A shrewd insight, my lord Arthur," says Geraint. "I can see your situation," says Kai. As the war reader, he breaks off, blinking owlishly at his wine. "There's some..." And then you realize that the room is blurring in front of you, and your tongue is thick in your mouth. "Poison," rumbles Gawain. The knife slips from your numbed fingers onto the floor.